The question of whether condoms ruin sexual satisfaction is one that touches on both ancient concerns about human pleasure and modern realities about health and safety. From a Stoic point of view, the answer would not be found in the sensations themselves, but in the perspective and discipline of the individual. Stoicism teaches that external circumstances, whether physical pleasures or discomforts, are indifferent. What matters is how we use our reason to respond to these circumstances. In the same way that a Stoic would remain undisturbed by a cold bath or a simple meal, so too would they approach the use of condoms without complaint or attachment. If a condom seems to diminish physical sensation, a Stoic would remind themselves that true satisfaction does not come from the body, but from the mind's harmony with virtue. Sex, in Stoic thought, is not to be pursued for its own sake, but approached with temperance and respect for oneself and one's partner. It is meant to fulfill natural duties and maintain relationships, not to enslave the soul to fleeting pleasures. Thus, whether sex feels more or less intense with a condom becomes a trivial matter compared to the greater goods of self-control, mutual respect, and the responsible care of life. Moreover, a Stoic would recognize the role of condoms in protecting against disease and unwanted consequences. To use a condom is an act of prudence, one of the key virtues. Prudence calls for foreseeing potential harms and guarding against them. It would be irrational to sacrifice long-term well-being and peace of mind for the sake of momentary, marginal increases in sensation. The wise person values their health, their partner's health, and the greater good of stability over any fleeting bodily pleasure. One could even argue that the discipline required to accept slight inconveniences, like using a condom, strengthens the character. In a world where pleasure is often exalted above wisdom, willingly embracing a small inconvenience for the sake of a greater good is an act of quiet courage. It is a reminder that we are not slaves to our senses, but masters of our choices. If one approaches sex with the belief that it must always deliver peak pleasure to be worthwhile, dissatisfaction will always follow, with or without a condom. Desires constantly shift. What once thrilled now becomes ordinary. The Stoic refuses to be tossed about by such waves. Instead, they anchor themselves in the stable harbor of virtue, finding contentment not in the endless pursuit of more sensation, but in the rational, respectful sharing of intimacy. In the end, condoms do not ruin sexual satisfaction. Only misguided expectations and an undisciplined mind can do that. True satisfaction is not in friction or fleeting intensity, but in the rational, loving connection between